Hello, hello everybody. This is Mr. MacDonald, and we're going to make a study guide for a test. And some of the topics, guys, are going to be the French Revolution and the Enlightenment. So listen right along. I'm going to give you guys some hints. So basically, if you ever see Voltaire, Rousseau, and Montesquieu together, you know those guys were all Enlightenment thinkers, and their ideas helped spark the Enlightenment. Next, who thought up the idea of separation of powers and dividing the government into three branches? Say, oh, I know, it was that guy Montesquieu. He believed that all the power of the government shouldn't just rest with one individual. So that would be Montesquieu. Next, if you ever see something about the Declarations of Rights of Man and the Declarations of Rights of Women written in 1700s, that's going to go with the French Revolution, the Declaration of Rights. And that's all associated with the French Revolution. Next, big turning point in history with those documents. They're the French Revolution. Those documents helped fuel the idea for removing the king. Who wrote about men are born free and equal? John Locke. And that was also during the French Revolution. Freedom. And if laws from a government violate people's rights, that government should be replaced. That'd be French Revolution. Next, the Third Estate. The Third Estate was 98% of the population in France, and they paid 50% of what they made in taxes. The Third Estate was overtaxed and underfed, and they demanded change. So, if you see the Third Estate, what does the Third Estate want? They want revolution. They want to have some freedom. The Third Estate, why were they upset? They were taxed to death in the French Revolution. The king ignored their pleas, and it was 98% of the population of France. Now, if you see a chart with philosophers Voltaire, Montesquieu, and John Locke and their ideas, we know Locke came up with natural rights, life, liberty, and property. Montesquieu was separation of powers. You guys will remember that from another question. And Voltaire, he thought about freedom of religion and expression and thought. Another thing, the three social classes in France under the old regime was the First Estate, the clergy. It was about 1%. The Second Estate, the nobles, was about 2%. And the Third Estate was 98% of the population. And it was the peasants in the countryside and the city workers. They demanded freedom. Another thing to remember is the Enlightenment. It's a time in history when philosophers spoke out against absolute monarchs like King Louis XVI. The French Revolution happened, why? Because the people were divided into estates, and 98% of the population had no representation really in government, and they were starving and broke and poor. So, once again, the thinkers, Montesquieu, Voltaire, and Rousseau, they inspired people to rebel. They'd write down their thoughts about equality. People read them, and they got upset at the absolute monarchs, and not only in France, but other places. You may see a political cartoon, and if you look closely, you'll see that the Third Estate is walking with the cane bent over, and holding them down, you have the clergy and the nobility, the First and Second Estate. And that was a popular political cartoon in France at the time. The Third Estate's back was being broken by the weight of the First and Second Estate. A lot of people read what Montesquieu and Rousseau published, and they decided it was time to get rid of the king. Now, man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. Everyone has natural rights to life, liberty, and property. Slavery, torture, and religious persecution are wrong. Those are all ideas that were circulated throughout the French Revolution. John Locke and Rousseau, they would support a society that gave rights to the citizens. And if the government did not provide rights, the people would be allowed to overthrow it in revolution. A impact or a result of the French Revolution is the revolutionary ideas spread around the world. Okay, France loses their king, and the revolution becomes violent. Okay, other people saw this around the world, and a lot of royal families were shaken and upset. Okay, that happened in France. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, and they have certain unalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Who said this? John Locke. He believed that everybody was created equal, and there were no god kings, and that Louis XVI had to go, and the other kings had to go, and they should be replaced with a government like democracy. Next, Locke and Rousseau, they were Enlightenment writers, and they expanded on the concept of natural law. And natural law is basically people should govern themselves freely, and tyrants should be eliminated. Last but not least, John Locke was against the power of kings as God. So if you see somebody that opposed kings, it would be John Locke. He opposed divine right. He opposed absolute monarchs. That would be John Locke. He believed everybody's created equal. So I'd like you guys to watch this video as many times as you need to. Okay? Use it and push pause, take notes, play it again and again. And then when you're ready, you guys can take that test. Thanks a lot, everybody. This is Mr. MacDonald signing off. Have a great day.